This is the AO1 content for theft. Quite a lot of information, but it is a logical structure, which is nice and helpful. So, point 1, theft is defined in Section 1 of the Theft Act 1968 as D. Dishonestly appropriates property belonging to another with the intention of permanently depriving the other of it. It's a triable either way offence, which, as you know, means it could be heard in the magistrates or it could go to the Crown Court, maximum 7-year sentence. First of all, actus reus, so this is point 3. The actus reus is the appropriation of property belonging to another. Section 3 defines the word appropriates as any assumption of the rights of the owner amounts to an appropriation. So, for example, lending it to someone, using it, damaging it, selling it. Only the owner can do that. The next point about appropriation is it occurs the moment you assume any of those rights, and that's the case of Gomez. Morris and Anderton, our price label swapping case, they established that you only need to assume one of the rights. You don't have to assume all of the rights of the owner for it to be appropriation. Remember that even if the owner consents, it can amount to an appropriation, and that was Lawrence, the taxi driver case. If you receive a gift from a vulnerable person, then it can also amount to an appropriation. That's the case of Hinks. The next point is property. So property is defined in Section 4. It includes money and real and personal property. Remember, Oxford v. Moss said that information is not property. There are other laws that cover information. Wildflowers and wild animals are not classed as property either, but if you intend to sell those flowers, they become property. Equally, if somebody else is in possession of the wild animal and you steal it from them, then it will amount to property. Section 5 is belonging to another. Sometimes that's really easy, the property belongs to you. However, it does include people in possession and control of the property. So for example, in Ricketts, taking clothes and items out of bags and bins outside a charity shop did amount to theft because the shop was in possession and control of those items. Remember that if you receive property by mistake, you have to return it, I'm afraid. Section 5.4 says that, and the AG ref case. Turner established that you can be guilty of stealing your own property. Also remember that if you have an obligation to deal with your money in a particular way, then you must do so. And that's Section 5.3. And it's the case of Davidge, where she went and spent the gas bill money on Christmas presents. Okay, the next point is to do with the mens rea. The mens rea comes in 2 parts, Section 2, dishonesty, and Section 6, intent to permanently deprive the other of it. Now, Section 2 does not define dishonesty. Section 2 does state 3 situations where you're not dishonest. So you're not dishonest under Section 2.1a if you believe you have a legal right to the property. You're not dishonest under 2.1b if you believe the owner would consent to the taking, and you're not dishonest under 2.1c if you take reasonable steps to find the owner. So if none of those things apply, then you have to look at the Ivy test. Now, case of Ivy is a recent case, and the jury have to consider, is the defendant dishonest by the standards of a reasonable and honest person, whoever that may be. Then we need to look at the final point, Section 6. This is the intent to permanently deprive the other of it. Issues arise when the defendant borrows the property. So what the case of Lloyd said is, if you borrow property and you reduce its value, it's the same as an outright taking. Section 6 is also quite clear that if you treat the thing, so the property, as your own to dispose of, regardless of the other's rights, then Section 6 is satisfied, and that's the case of Marshall. So that's the AO1. You need that, remember, for an essay question, 10 marks, and you also need it for a scenario question, and you would get 10 marks for legal knowledge. Watch the AO3 video for the evaluation points that you would need for an essay on theft.